Guru Namaha. The various sects, shakas, the line of gurus, have terms expressing their teachings. This line of teachings is called marga or path, a way. There are those who teach Shanti path, the path to peace. Shakti path, the energy path. Some teach yoga path, tantric path. Some teach moksha path. We are Anandapatis. We exemplify the idea that there is abundant joy in the universe, Anandam, Satchidanandam. And our gurus from earliest time have been called Ananda Gurunathas, the lords, the natas, or the lords of Anandam. Although technically we're also moksha paths, we're Shakti paths as Tantra. When we sing the names of our gurus, though we sing in terms of the Ananda path for our gurus. And in honoring the gurus this evening, on this Guru Dakshina, I want to speak to you briefly about my guru, your Param Guru, who was a great and noble tantric, the most amazing personality, human being I've ever met. And I doubt at this late date in my life I will meet anyone to surpass him. It was Kanakananda Brighu, Kanakananda Swamiji, and his guru was Vividishananda, who was also a Brighu. He was initiator of the famous Purnananda Brighu, whom I shall talk about later. I have succeeded my guru on the Ananda path, or with the Anandapatis, where we are tantrics. Brighu is the Rishi Brighu, who was one of the Sapta Rishis, the great 7 wise men of spirituality here in India. A contemporary of another guru who is honored in this ashram where we are Giris, that is Agastya Rishi. A great South Indian Saiva Siddhantist, the Siddha Yogi, where the path is Saiva Yoga. And in that Saiva Yoga, moksha path is their aim. They sometimes call themselves Jnanapatis also. Swamiji, who sits in Samadhi here, is referred to superbly as Jnana Desika, one who found the greatest joy in Jnana Yoga, in Jnana, in wisdom. Please follow me in this mantra that is used in praise of our gurus, and I will sing a line and then you repeat the same line. Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha. Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha Ramana, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha, Ananda Gurunatha, Vivedishananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha 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 Ananda 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 Ananda Gurunatha Ananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Kanakananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Kanakananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Kanakananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Kanakananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Kanakananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Ananda 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 Ananda Gurunatha Ananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Gitananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha Gitananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gitananda Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha 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 Ananda 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 Gurunatha Ramana Ananda Gurunatha the tantrics of India are as old as time itself. Yoga is the mother of Tantra. Tantra has been an offshoot of that yoga. The tantrics developed a very wide-based concept of energy, mind, matter. In fact, the tantrics have explored every possible side of man's nature. So much so that the tantric cult itself is split into many minor cults. There are at least 10 modern cults. 5 belong to the Vamamarga path, the negative path, which is a worldly path, and 5 belonging to the Dakshina Marga school, the progressive or evolutionary path. The tantrics that I talk of this evening are those high, great mystic tantrics that belong to Dakshina Marga, evolutionary Marga, moksha patis, ananda patis. Many, many centuries ago, there was a tantric whose name was Gitananda, nearly 800 years ago. So when I sing Gitananda in this Ananda Guru line, I'm not thinking of myself. But until my time, I was the first to carry the name Gitananda Brighu in 730 years. Now there are a number of Gitanandas in other orders. Vividishananda was a very eminent teacher of a century ago. He was a direct disciple of Purnananda Brighu, that mystic writer who from around the 16th century was producing beautiful Sanskrit material in Bengali, and he has left us a legacy of 26 beautiful works on Tantra. It is those works by Purnananda Brighu that have been passed down age by age, intact, on the chakras, the bindus, the kundalini. It was this material that fell into the hands of the wife of Sir John Woodruff, who was then Chief Justice of Bengal, with his court in Calcutta. Sir John Woodruff was an eminent tantric scholar. His wife was a tantric. Sir John shocked people of his day by moving with Hindus. And Sir John used to arrive in court dressed in a dhoti, a chuba, and wearing a cord and a mala. And many of the English insulted him by calling him a wagwala, an Indian lover. But he didn't mind this at all. He studied many of the works that his wife was reading. He was the scholar, she was the yogini. And Sir John began to put out some of this material. And because he was Chief Justice of India, certain limitations are on such people. So he wrote under the pseudonym of Arthur Avalon. Sir John, as a young Englishman, was interested in Arthur, King of the Round Table, an ancient Devon king in England, who it is said called 12 knights around a round table. And there he administered certain oaths, tantric oaths, to these knights and mystics. And what English child has not heard of King Arthur? In the days of King Arthur's court, and the round table of his famous knights, including Sir Galahad, who went looking for the mystic grail, the cup out of which Jesus is supposed to have drank at the Last Supper. The term Avalon comes from the Germanic Norse, where Avalon means heaven. And Sir John was much interested in the philosophy of Baldur, who was the son of Odin, a Germanic Christ of ancient times. So when he wrote as Arthur Avalon. He took this title. He came across many of the works of Purnananda Brighu, and one of these works, the 24th out of 26, he has brought into print in Shakti Shakti and the tantric works that are attributed to Sir John. He translated only one. It is a bit sad that in modern times, Ganesh and Company in Madras produced the works of Sir John Woodruff, Arthur Avalon. They do not even mention that these are simply translations and renditions of the work of Purnananda Bhikkhu. He was the teacher, the guru of Vivedishananda. It's possible, by the way, that Purnananda was at the time the guru of Vivedishananda some 400 years old. He may have been 500, 600, he may have been 700, he may have been 800. And there's a good possibility that those who talk about a Baba living in the north today are talking about Purnananda Bhikkhu, who was initiated into sannyas as Purnananda Saraswati. But he wrote all of his works as Purnananda Bhikkhu. Someplace along the line, he left off the Dasanami cult and joined the Tantric group, the Dakshina Marga Tantric group. My guru, Kanakananda Swami, Kanakananda Bhikkhu, was a disciple of Vivedishananda. And it is about Kanakananda that I wish to make a few words this evening. Kanakananda means he who has found the richness of the Anandam. Kanaka means gold, but it also means esoterically, he who has learned to swallow atoms. He who has learned how to transform straw into gold, an alchemist. It has many, many meanings. I want to take you back to a period of nearly 75 years ago. 1909, I begin my story. 2 years after my birth. A young man, much into the freedom movement of India, associated with Annie Besant, the Irish IRA activist here in India, first president of the Congress Party. I wonder if you're aware of that, with an election at hand, and the Indira Congress trying to recapture the nation, that Annie Besant was the first president of the Congress. A woman with a price on her head in India. But here in India, was allowed to move about freely. But she was a great educationist. She had a tremendous desire to see education in India reach the highest that it had been since Brahmanical times. Annie Besant, as you know, is associated with the Theosophical Society. And the school today is called Annie Besant School at the Theosophical Society in Archival. Ram Mohan Malaviya, our great freedom fighter and educationalist, was associated with the same group. And a number of people said, why don't we start an institution in India specifically for Hindus? The Muslims have their own college since Mughal times. Incredible colleges like Allahabad, colleges at Allahabad. The Christians had gigantic colleges in Madras like Loyola College, but not a single Hindu institution. Can you imagine the situation? So these people said, let us start a Hindu institution, purely Indian, but for Hindus. Bring up a group of young men and women highly educated, as in the past, but modern people fit to run India in the future. So they founded in 1909 the first Banaras Hindu College on the rivers of the Ganges. That building today is a hostel for BHU, Banaras Hindu University. But it was first Banaras Hindu College. And Ram Gopal Majumdar, a Bengali, born in Mymensingh, now in Bangladesh, erstwhile East Pakistan, and before that East Bengal, was amongst that group. He was a professor of English and a man with an incredible knowledge of English. He spoke English without an accent and numerous other languages. And he was persuaded to join this radical group to produce a Hindu society in the future. And when, after the first year of great success, they decided to move to some land that was donated by the Maharaja of Banaras, and form Banaras Hindu University, BHU. Ram Gopal Majumdar was asked to be its first Vice Chancellor. And you may find it of some interest that BHU is the only university in India where the Prime Minister of India is not the Chancellor. The Prime Minister of India is the Chancellor of every university in India. The Vice Chancellor is the technical head. But the Maharaja of Banaras is the Chancellor always of Banaras Hindu University because of the endowment of land in their original charter. Ram Gopal Majumdar, Dr. Ram Gopal Majumdar, became the first Vice Chancellor, the first administrator of Banaras Hindu University. This was a tremendous honor heaped upon such a young man. He was at the peak of his career. He had brought his young wife from East Bengal and settled in Banaras. They had an 8-year-old son. He was intensely proud of his son. And after the close of the college one day, he was returning to his home in Banaras proper when he noticed some smoke rising over the area where he lived. And he thought, some poor devil is losing his home. Great feelings of compassion welled out upon him as he turned into the street on which he lived, and he discovered the house on fire was his own. He rushed to the house where neighbors were gathered, trying to put out the fire, and was told that his wife and son were inside of the house. He dashed into the house to try and save them, but the house was so thoroughly on fire that he fainted. He came out of the house with his clothes on fire. His hair was on fire. His clothes were on fire. People started to pull at his clothes, but he himself tore off his clothes. And in some kind of madness, at his loss, he went running naked through the streets of Banaras, and later was seen no more. Nothing was heard of him for 8 years. He wandered like a sadhu in the jungles of Bihar and West Bengal. Most people thought he was dead. And in time, his name passed from the memory of most human beings. Our Swamiji suddenly appears after years as a sadhu. Someplace along the line, he had met Rishiculture and he'd taken initiation. Someplace along the line, he had regained his sanity, or partially. Although, frankly, I think he was insane most of his natural life. He wandered across northern India. He became famed amongst the Bengalis who called him Kanuya, sleepless saint, conscious one. Others called him Kanakananda because they knew he was a tantric and they believed this tantric could turn straw into gold. The same thing is told of our Kambaliswamy here, that he had the ability of alchemy to turn low things into high things, straw into gold. Of course, I have to tell you that the real alchemy is the change of a donkey, a human being, a jackass human being, into a human being. A human being into a divine reality, a God-man. That is the real alchemy for which the tantrics are known. But the fool in the street believes the tantric can make gold out of straw. They never think at all of the incredible transformation that a guru can make of a bad man into a good man. What an incredible alchemy this is. We pick up the story that relates to myself. My grandfather, after a military career as Major General Sean Kelly, left the British Raj, where he was Auditor General, and became a sadhu. My grandfather and my mother, inculturated, embraced Hinduism through Arya Samaj and Swami Dayananda Saraswati. When in a time, only such sadhus were admitting non-Hindus into Hinduism, where sadhus were giving names, Hindu names, to individuals, where they were giving the thread, marrying Western couples and so on, which in that time was relatively unheard of. But in the case of my mother and father, they were married according to Arya Samaj rites. And many of you Indians owe your background, your pujas, your havanas, and so on, to Arya Samaj Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Somehow, my grandfather, in wandering in the north, met Kanakananda Swami. They knew each other. And on a particular summer, a sadhu visited my father's home. It was a listless day in great heat, an unhappy day in our family, by the way. My mother had died. She was the very core of our existence. My father virtually died when my mother died. It was a love marriage, and he never regained his composure. Again, although he only died on the 26th of June 1948, he never regained his composure after the death of my mother. My grandfather was away in the hospital at Meerut with a kidney complaint. And this sadhu came looking for Janaki Das, as people called my grandfather. And my father told a servant, telling him that the old man is away, and I don't want him to stay here. Please don't stay here. We have difficulties maintaining our own household. Please don't stay. Later, the servant told my father that this man was a school teacher. He didn't tell him who he was, but he told him he was a school teacher. So my father upbraided the servant and said, "You fool! The children in this house need a school teacher, and you let a school teacher go? Sir, you told me to drive him out." The servant was set off to find this Swamiji. Swamiji was brought to meet my father, and as far as I know, this is the single occasion on which my father and my guru met together, although my guru lived and died in my father's household. The single meeting between them was one in which my father asked him, "Sadhuji, are you a teacher? Are you a school teacher?" And the sadhu said, "Sir, I am a teacher of a type. Can you teach my children?" "Sir, if you wish me to, I will teach your children." So I gained a school teacher that day. It was my 12th birthday, the 24th of July, when my guru came into my life. This Kanakananda Swami was Ram Gopal Mujumdar, Dr. Ram Gopal Mujumdar, a former Vice Chancellor of Banaras Hindu University, who chose to teach children, to work with children. And in our family at that time, there were 2 elder brothers to myself, a younger sister, some near relatives, cousins, brothers, and sisters. Members of my father's law firm who had children were also in our household being schooled, and some Hindu children from outside, 37 children in all, ranging in age from 10 to 16. And Ram Gopal Mujumdar, Kanakananda Swami, who we simply called Guruji, or in English Master, took over this group of children and educated them. And I had the privilege of living 6 years with my guru, from my 12th birthday until beyond my 17th birthday when I went to England. This man was an incredible man. I hardly remember being taught, but everything he taught was so vital and so wonderful that we were excited about what we were learning. And we learned in our own environment. He was a tantric who taught asanas and pranayama. He taught various tantric methods of controlling emotional drives. And we had the benefit of these teachings from this august sage. We didn't know what we were getting. There was no way of knowing. He was simply our school teacher, although we revered him greatly. And there were regular ceremonies in the ashram. We kept to the Hindu calendar for our celebrations. He taught us to understand the nature of the inner and the outer ekdashis, how a calendar is kept for a period of time on the bright side of the moon and on the dark side of the moon, and how 11 days out of every 14-day cycle are considered important to a Hindu, how there was a personal body cycle, and I could work out body cycles before I could hardly read and write. And these things were simply taught to us as you were taught the things that you were taught. And this was our education. What I am, I owe to that man. He completely ruined me. Absolutely destroyed me. You see, I was born to be a great dacoit. To be the biggest thief and cheat in the world. I was to knock off Adolf Hitler. And become king of the world. And this old man got hold of me at 12 and thoroughly ruined me. I've been able to be a bad man. I haven't been able to cheat. I haven't been able to do all of the things that you have to do, to be a really fine bad man. You know, it's very difficult when you're good to be bad. And here I was born to be bad, and this old man ruined me. Can you imagine today that I should have been Big Brother? George Orwell's 1984. I should have been running the world today. This old man ruined me. Completely spoiled me. So that in my whole lifetime, even if I thought to do something bad, there was something called guru consciousness. You know, some people have a conscience. It's about the size of a little cricket. Walt Disney called it Jiminy Cricket. And it used to come to this Italian fellow called Pinocchio. But he didn't listen, so his nose got longer and longer. Every time he told a lie, Pinocchio's nose grew. Well, my guru completely destroyed me. So that in my lifetime, even against my nature, I have sought good. Even against my nature, I've sought knowledge. Look, no three voluntarily seeks knowledge. Three in the birth path, one's fun. And life is so much fun for a Leonian on top of that. I'm a 3 and a Leonian on top of that. And who ever heard of a Leonian 3 being serious? Nobody. But my guru was able to transform this budding dacoit, this budding world emperor of evil, into a semi-good guy, and to die leaving him with the responsibility of his guru's teaching. I was blessed tremendously in that my guru poured out upon me teachings which I could not understand at the time. Even there are occasions today when I hear myself saying something and I say, aha, that's what he meant. He taught me things which I was not able to use at the time. And I used to wonder, why is he teaching me this? I have no use for this. I have no value for this information. Yet in time I came to need it. This is why I tell you sometimes, just sit in satsang. You don't understand? Okay. Sit in the classes. You don't understand? Okay. Someday you will. Because that has been my own experience. That many, many years had to pass before I understood what he meant. Along the way, many experiences came. A year after my guru entered my life, on my 13th birthday, I went to him and asked for Diksha. I wanted to be his disciple. In those times, Diksha also meant taking a Diksha title and literally becoming a brahmacharin, a brahmacharini, a sannyasin, a sannyasini. It was not that the guru made Swamijis or anything of this nature, although he had the right to do so, if he was so inclined. I asked him for Diksha on my 13th birthday and he declined. In fact, it was very unhappily done on my part and I began to cry. I actually wept. And one of the reasons I wept was he ridiculed me. He laughed at me. It was really very funny. He thought that I should ask for Diksha. And so when I actually began to weep, he said, why do you want Diksha? For what reason? And then I told him, well, sir, there are many reasons, but mainly today is my birthday. And he said, this is your birthday? I said, yes. He said, this very date? I said, this date, but according to the calendar, can be in many ways. He said, what is your nakshatra? I said, Brigu. In the Sapta Rishis, Brigu. He said, your nakshatra is Brigu. What time of day were you born? I said, 7:30 in the morning. He shook his head for a moment. Then he said, I once had a son. This was the first time he said anything about his past. I once had a son who would be much like you. You are not a reincarnation of that son. But he said, it is tremendously interesting to note that your birth date is the birth date of my son. He said, you were born in Simmarasi? I said, yes. And you were born under the fixed nakshatra, the fixed star Brigu? I said, yes. He said, do you know what the phase of the moon was at the time? I said, it was full. So he recanted and gave me Diksha. And amongst the things he said at that time, you will leave the world that will be much blessed by your voice in your hands when you are 54. And when you do, you'll be known as the Guru Gitananda. So I carry the name that my Guru has given to me. But he said before that, there is much in life for you. There is marriage, there is children, there is fame, there is disclaim, there is everything that a human being can experience. But at 54, you will turn totally to the spiritual, to the yoga path. And when you do, accept that you should be the Mahant of that order. So amongst the three yogic tantric groups that I head, that of the Bhikkhus is the tantric side of our group. And what we teach here in the Hatha Yoga, in the Pranayama, much into the mantric form, is that of Bhrigu Rishi, who was the author of the Tharva Veda. The other sections of the Vedas are ascribed to various authors and were written down by the Rishi Vyasa. Now Vyasa is sometimes included amongst the great Sapta Rishis, but he is actually one of the minor, not one of the major. But Vyasa's own father, Pangu Muni, was a direct disciple of the Bhrigu Rishi. And it was he who taught Vyasa the mantras and the culture of the Bhrigus. And Vyasa says, of the material that I give of the Bhrigu Rishi, these have been taught to me by my own father. The others I have studied or heard from other sources. And of course, behold, that Vyasa is the author of Rig Veda, Samaveda, and the Yajurveda. Although not really the auditor, he's the codifier who brings them together. But in the case of the Atharva Veda, it is the Rishi Bhrigu who is only involved there. And Vyasa says, I give that material only as the Bhrigu Rishi taught it to my father. So through Vyasa we have a particular connection. Alive at the same time. The Sapta Rishis lived for incredible periods of time. It is said of Bhrigu Rishi that he lived 6,666 years. Agastya Rishi, who was from South India here, and lived upon the very property that we live upon here. This is Dera Agastya. As Dera Dun in the north is the camp, Dera, of Dronacharya, whom you saw the other evening in the film on Krishna and Karna. Dronacharya, the guru there, used to teach at a place called Dera Drona. Today it is called Dera Dun. The foot of the Himalayas below Mussoorie, and just off to the west from Rishikesh and Hardwar, 60 kilometers away. So this was Dera Agastya. Agastya, it is said, lived 8,888 years. And he was young by the age of some of the rishis. It is said that Vasishta lived one day short of 10,000 years. 9,999 years. I hope your ears are sharp enough to pick up things like 6666. And 666 years. 6,666 years. 8,888 years. 888. 9,999 years. 9999. These give us some clue to their yantras. But whatever, we have to ask a question, were the years of these rishis equal to our years today? And the answer is yes. But they lived in a different consciousness that we live in. And according to your consciousness, your life expands and multiplies, so that when you're living in the spiritual field, the physical years do not matter. The more you live in the physical world, the less you live. The more you're borne down by the wheels of time. And essentially the tantric cult and its message is that we can live beyond space, beyond time, and beyond mind when we enter into our energy lives. Now for most of us, we don't even have enough energy for the body, let alone have an energy body. And so Tantra is the cult of energy control. That's what Tantram means. Tana means the energy. As it comes from Shakti, it becomes Tan. Tanmatra. The Tanmatra, as it slows down, becomes sense matter. The Indriyas. Gyan Indriyas And in the physical become the karmendriyas, the ears, the mouth and such. But before there is a mouth to taste, a nose to smell, an ear to hear, an eye to see, the skin to feel, before that there is a substance out of which these feelings are built. It is called tanmatra. Tan, energy in its matter form. Matra, literally metric, means form. Where tan, energy becomes form. Above tan is Shakti. Above Shakti is the Supreme Self, Shakta. And amongst the tantrics, it is this tanmatra that they are trying to get control of. A high vibration before the senses, beyond the senses. So the tantric message also of the Dakshina Margas is live beyond your senses. Move outside of those senses. Overcome the senses. Live outside of the senses. The Vama Margis say control yourself and your senses by getting involved in the senses. I think that's a mistake. You have to involve with your senses and pass beyond the sense, the indriya into the tan, from the tan into the shakti into the shakta. In this ashram, we revere all gurus. This is why on occasion eminent Buddhists will speak here. Eminent Christians, particularly mystic Christians, will be invited to speak here. And we honor the gurus from all walks of life. If people want to talk about the Shakti path, fine. We're happy to listen because it's part of life. Shanti path, moksha path, jnana path, very happy to have such people join us. But on the evenings when we hold Guru Dakshina in the ashram, it is the Anandapatis with which we are concerned. On the 22nd of next month, we will be holding the annual Guru Puja, the 111th Aradhana of Dr.Ananda Giri, who was one of the very eminent great siddhas who lived here. And since his time, the Siddha cult has carried on here in a very vast and a very big way. And in myself, I have tried to emulate some of these teachings as I understand them and bring them together with the Tantric cult. The Siddhas of South India, by the way, are Dakshina Marga Tantrics. So it's fairly easy to blend the two cults. And it must have been fairly easy for Kambaliswamy because he also came from the north. He was deeply involved in a tantric cult when he came here looking for a great tantric, Arunagiri. Found Arunagiri in this very mutt, stayed here and served Swamiji to his death. And incredibly, according to our records, Arunanatha Giri died at 1,005 years of age. Kambaliswamy served him here and died at 504 years of age. And when we think of these ages, we're astounded until you remember that the gurus of this cult were ancient gurus who lived long periods of time. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 years to do their sadhana. They chose that instead of coming back into body after body after body, for many of you, 25 to 50 more incarnations, you're going to make it. These gurus said, why bother to die and get born again? Is there not a way in which, when you complete one lifetime, you stay in the body and have another lifetime? So they believed that there was a kaya kalpa, a way by which you could rejuvenate your body. Instead of dying, you come to a point where you should die, and then you live on again. They are called chiranjeevi in the language of both North and South. Chiranjeevi. And they carry on, instead of dying, in the same body. And perhaps you've already had an experience in your life, or you're ready for one, for which you die, and a few minutes later you're still in the same body and you carry on as someone else. I've had 5 or 6 experiences like this, including a couple of experiences last year. I left my body, but a few minutes later I was still in the body. Was it the same body? This is the kind of experience which we talk of in Tantra. In common parlance, they talk of life after life. Life after death, life after life, reincarnation. And you may have many experiences of that type also. But you will come to the point, with many of the practices which you are now using, where you will experience that you die. You'll actually experience a death experience. And a few minutes later, you're not only alive, but filled with energy. But know something has happened. And that you're not the same person. That is, you're not tied up with the same old karma. You're free now to get on with something else. This is a Dakshina Marga tantric energy experience. And I wish these experiences for you on a night of Guru Dakshina and this Guru Puja. Mani, will you give us a couple of choruses leading up to the Guru Dakshina? And then at that particular time, just before the Dakshina, Bianca wants to render some selections, some poetry. We'll do so.